Okay, hello everyone. Let's wait a minute or two and give a chance everyone to join. Meanwhile, can you hear me? There is a chat on the right. Okay, let's start. So, before we begin, just a quick intro. My name is Volodymyr Rudyi. I'm running a software development company called AgileVision. Initially, this was meant to be an internal workshop, but then I thought, why not to make it available for everyone? Good news, I've already had V1, so you'll be watching an improved version. So let's start. And just give me a sec. Okay, so the problem is right now AI tools and AI coding tools are very popular. It's kind of hype. And for many software engineers, the question is it a real thing or it's just a hype and it doesn't make sense to use it? Furthermore, most of the time, we see a lot of examples for, let's call it startup languages, TypeScript, because it's very popular. Everyone knows about TypeScript. Then on the UI side, it may be React, Vue, Angular. But most of the time, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, okay, I need to create an enterprise Java application with like 30 microservices and 500 interfaces. So obviously there is a question: can we use AI tools for Java, and will it work? Based on that, I created this workshop. Initially, I started actively using AI tools for our own product called Sync My Orders. It's a no-code platform, and the reason for that is sometimes I needed to boost development of certain parts of that product, but we had limited resources. So that's why I thought, okay, can we use AI for that? And here is my experience. So before we proceed, like smart people have plans, so we also have a plan. First of all, we'll start with some disclaimers. Then I'll be doing an overview of available tools. There will be a bit of information regarding agents and copilots. Then we'll talk about main dilemma. And finally, it will be a hands-on example. And then I also would like to bring up some limitations, restrictions, and kind of gotchas I discovered while working with AI tools. First, disclaimer: I'm not an AI expert. I don't develop models. I don't, create anything fancy in AI world. I'm just using it, and I'm looking for possible improvements to my workflows. Second, the workshop is full of non-LLM generated memes. So guys, like old guys like me, will see something familiar. There is also LLM generated memes for those who are younger. And also, I would like to bring up another theme. So social networks right now are full of, I'd call it snake oil salesmen. So people that are saying that you can use AI for everything and you can use AI to solve any problem. But the reality is AI is just a tool, and there is a certain application for every tool. So let's see what kind of application we can use for AI in our work. And I also wanted to say that probably this may be a bit offensive for Java developers. And I'm Java developer myself, so I can be offensive here. But if you look at IDEs in Java, then realistically, we have 2.5 IDEs. So realistically, JetBrains idea is the most powerful one. So it's usable. You can import any project. You can start working with that project, and you will have a good developer experience. And then 1.5 remaining, you can select any, right? So of course there is Eclipse, and it's a powerful platform. It's a great open source product, but developer experience of Eclipse, I mean, if you use Eclipse, then you know what I'm talking about. And I'm still using Eclipse day to day for non-Java projects, and recently also tried it for Java projects. Then on the other hand, we have Visual Studio Code, right? And it's not an IDE itself, it's more like a code editor, but you can install many extensions. You can install Java extension, and it will make it usable. It will make it, closer to real IDE. And I need to mention Eclipse again, because as I mentioned, Eclipse is a great platform, and it started lots of great products, and Visual Studio Code, like Java plugins, are using Eclipse platform under the hood, or contributions from the Eclipse platform. So still is great, but if we're talking about developer experience, then probably it will be IDEA. On the other hand, if you go to JetBrains IDEA or Visual Studio Code, but let's use IDEA as an example. If you go to IDEA, if you go to the marketplace and you search for some AI plugins, you'll get around 300 plugins. So we're kind of in a situation when we have 2.5 IDEs and 300 plugins for those IDEs. So the hype is so strong that every day there is a new plugin, every day there is a new model, right? And for many, the question is, what should I use? Even if we restrict ourselves and we'll say, okay, let's think about plugins or tools, AI tools that are provided by major contributors to the AI development, major cloud providers. So basically, those guys who create their own models, then you will still get at least a dozen. And still the question will stand. So as you can see, some logos. So right now on Microsoft side, you can use GitHub Copilot. JetBrains created Junie plugin. I'll be talking a lot about Junie plugin today. Alibaba Cloud has their own plugin for coding. There is also OpenAI Codex, Claude, Gemini, AWS infrastructure. AWS ecosystem has Amazon Q Developer. And also, for example, if you don't want to use provider-specific plugin, you can use Aider. So maybe some of you heard about Aider. Maybe not, but the point is, this is a tool that works in your terminal. It constantly checks for your files, for modification in those files, and then you can add a special comment to a file, and it will start interpreting that as an AI prompt and transforming your code. The idea is that you can add AI to anything. So if you are using Nano, if you're using Vim, NeoVim, or whatever, you still can integrate it with AI tools by using Aider, for example. And it supports major providers like OpenAI, Claude, Gemini, I think, for sure. And then the question is, if there are so many plugins, is there more to it? Yes. So initially, everything was a Copilot. You heard the word Copilot, and it was, again, it was a hype in the AI world. Is like it was 2 weeks ago, right? But initially, Copilots appeared. And then also something new appeared, and you already can see it in many products, including JetBrains. So it has agent mode, Junie, their agent mode plugin. Then if you go on GitHub and if you will check Copilot, it has also agent mode. So the question is, what is Copilot? What is agent? What is the difference? And it's very simple. So both are using LLMs, but just in a bit different ways. So if we're talking about copilots, most of the time it acts as a code-based consultant. So it uses its model. It can be a specific model. Usually you can select one. And then it uses your code base as a context, and then it can allow you doing some small modifications to code or refactoring. And usually what happens is you provide files to Copilot, which should be in scope of its context. And it's ideal for analyzing code, and also very good for writing small pieces of code. And of course, it hallucinates a bit. So for those who don't know, hallucinations in LM is basically unexpected output that's produced as a result of nature of LM, because it's probabilistic. Then most of the time when you're dealing with agents, with copilots, you have to trigger the next step. So you, for example, create a context, you write a prompt and say, okay, refactor this method. It's too abstract, but still. It performs refactoring, then you say, okay, create a unit test for that method. So that this is kind of step-by-step conversation. And when we're talking about AI, I think everyone wants to get rid of obvious stuff that should happen automatically. So if, for example, you refactor a method, then probably you still need to automatically create a unit test, then build the whole code base, run all the tests, and make sure that nothing broken. And if it's broken, then fix the issue. So that's why we're now dealing with agentic workflows, where instead of treating prompt as an instruction on what to do, it treats prompt as a definition of a workflow which should be built. And once it's built, it's being applied to your code base. So for example, when you're working with agent-based tools and you say, let's say, refactor this method, right? So what will happen next? It will create a workflow, and based on just gut feeling, the workflow uses some best practices, right? Some best practices we would apply in everyday life. So first of all, it identifies all related files and classes and dependencies and so on and so forth. Then it creates a plan to modify your code. Finally, it adds an item, for example, to create unit tests, then a separate item to run those tests. And finally, instead of doing it on your own step by step in agentic workflows, the workflow itself is being built based on your input. And good thing about it is that agents may be smart enough to not just to create this plan once you provided a prompt, but also to update the plan as it discovers some new facts or new parts of your code. I'll be showing this in detail on the hands-on part. Meanwhile, we have still really many tools to select from, and the question still stands: how do we select a tool? Unfortunately, and I think that it's time for our poll. But unfortunately, we cannot always decide which tool to use, especially for non-personal projects. And let me launch this poll. Can you see it? Here we go. So just a quick question to better understand what's happening Okay, it's very interesting. I can see responses to the poll in percentage, and it's always flipping from yes to no. So every time it's a new response. I'll be closing it maybe in 5 seconds. So if you still have desire, please answer. Okay, so I can officially say that it will close in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so it's 60-40. 60% of organization encourage AI tools for development tasks, and 40% of organizations do not. Which brings me, how do I close it? Okay, close. Which brings me to my next question, which is how can we select tools? And unfortunately, if you start exploring AI tools in your daily work, probably you will face one of the biggest issues, especially for large mature organizations that do not develop AI models themselves. It's because they don't have policies and regarding how to deal with AI tools. It can be policies regarding the data, it can be security policies. What happens is usually if there is no policy, it's forbidden. And unfortunately, that is the case for many organizations. I think that will change soon, but most of the time, before using AI tools, probably you will need to consult with your organization on whether they have a preferred set of tools, whether they have at all some policy regarding this. And that um, gives us the following situation. If there is some policy in organizations, then probably what happens is it will be some tool that already present in the existing ecosystem. So, for example, if it's Azure, let's call it Azure hosted company, right? So if Azure is used everywhere, then probably it will be GitHub Copilot. Then if it's AWS, probably chances are it will be Amazon Q for developer. So on the other hand, personally, for myself, my own workflows, my own tasks, I prefer the second method of choices, like familiarity with workflows and integration with IDEs and better developer experience. So, for example, if we're talking about Visual Studio Code, I would use Copilot, for example, because it's probably integrated best. If we're talking about JetBrains, then I'm using JetBrains Junie plugin. So JetBrains provides two AI plugins. One is AI Assistant, which works exactly in this Copilot mode where you can ask it, they, him questions, and it will answer. Or you can use a Junie plugin, and it's a agentic workflow where you write prompt. Based on the prompt, it will create a plan, and then it will execute that plan to achieve your goal. And before we proceed with hands-on part, I would like to bring up the main dilemma that I'm facing it from time to time. So if we're talking about something that can do something for us or something instead of us, there is always a choice. We can boost our own productivity. And for example, I'm doing backend development in Java, right? I can use AI to boost my productivity in some ways, and I will show it later. On the other hand, if I need modifications on the front end side and I don't want to wait or I cannot wait, we can use AI to delegate stuff that we don't like or that we cannot do. And there is a problem with that also. So if you're using AI for something you know, then you can easily spot hallucinations. But if you're using it for something you hate and something you don't usually do, then you can be in a situation when you'll be dealing with lots of hallucinations, with lots of wasted time, but we'll talk about it a bit later. And I propose to switch to the hands-on part, where we'll be doing some coding online. And I like this because every time you try, well, yeah, Valentin is right, probably. What I like about this is that every time I do an example, because of the nature of LLM, result is similar but different. So I'm not sure what will happen next. And bear with me. Let's see. First of all, I would like to show you a Junie plugin, what will happen once you install it. And then we'll, in parallel, launch GitHub Copilot because it's way slower. It's running on GitHub Action Runners, so that takes some time. Let me share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen? Let me double check. Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you. Because I don't want to, go ahead and continue doing demo and you're not seeing anything. Okay, so this is a code base of Sync My Orders project, some version of it. And we'll be first exploring what happens when you install Junie plugin and how it works. So with coding assistants in general, what you want to happen. Oh, small text. Okay, perfect. Let me probably I need to change font. Okay, give me a second. Size. Is it better now? Unfortunately, we need to look here on the right side. So kind of. Thank you. Probably that won't work. Okay, so let me try and actually let me do the following. I know what I will do. Give me a second. Okay, I can see that the font is small. Then I will need to. Can you see my screen better now? Okay, I'm not sure how it will go further because now I have a really weird setting for scaling, but let's try. So as you can see, this is empty Junie project. I had to remove previous files, but what happens is before using Junie or any other agent, what you need to have, or what you would like probably to have, is some kind of instructions, or let's say guidelines on how you want your code base to be modified. So when you're starting, probably you don't have that. And if you don't have a README file, which is very detailed, then what you can do, you can go to this example prompt and you can ask Junie to generate a project-specific guideline. So project-specific guidelines will be a set of rules that will be applied to your project. And what's interesting, because Junie uses LLMs, it creates it in a very human readable form, and you can actually read that, and even if you're not LLM, and it provides very useful information. So let's see what happens, because again, every time I do it, it's something different, but similar. So it creates you a prompt here, which gives exact instructions on what to do for the agent. And I also have this Brave mode. So Brave mode for Junie, it means you can execute any commands in terminal that you want. I'm Brave, and I also need to show it during the workshop, so that should happen fast. So now it basically what happens, it starts creating a plan. So it creates this plan, internal plan based on a prompt. And it's important to understand that the more precise your prompt, the closer it to the plan that you would like to get, the better results you will get. So if the prompt is too vague, it will create a plan, it will create a very abstract plan, and probably something that will happen, it won't be something that you expect. As you can see on the right, it does, I'd say, reasonable things. First of all, it goes to find any kind of readmes. It tries to scan through readmes, find information there. It identifies it's a Maven project. Then it tries to find tests, goes to every module this project has. It's a multi-module Maven project, so the structure is a bit complicated, but I think it's a good example. And what else it does is it finds any existing test, and it tries to understand what kind of conventions you're using in your test, what are you testing. So it does everything that normal human being would do if they get this unfamiliar code base, but it does it in a very, I'd say, structured way. So we can use it as an inspiration. It will also create some sample tests. Probably those tests will be failing, but let's see. Usually at this point, I delete the test because I don't want it to create any additional code at this point. So it's working. Let's switch a bit. Let's go to GitHub. So while Junie is working, I would like to start in parallel GitHub Copilot plugin, because it's slow and we cannot wait for the whole day. So let me reshare it. The way you interact with GitHub Copilot, it's even more interesting than with Junie, because instead of separate window, a separate tool, you create an issue. And let's say I want to create an issue, and I wanted to generate README for a particular module. So I create an issue that says module management doesn't have a README. And here I just describe what needs to happen. So create a detailed README for the management module. It includes instructions on how to run it. And high level. And here is one hack that you can use. And for example, high level architecture diagram using Mermaid. Then, once you created this issue description, we can assign it to Copilot. And once it's created, Copilot will pick this issue and will start working on it. So it shows that it's looking into it. It will create right away a pull request with a work in progress mark, and it will provide you with some plan or initial version of a plan. In the conversation section of the pull request, it will be creating a plan and it will be step by step extending it. Once it creates a plan, it will start executing on that plan. So we can go to the view session here and look what's happening with Copilot, but it's still spinning up the environment, so that will take some time. And based on my experience, for this kind of task, for the first time, it will take around 10 minutes. So at this point, we'll need to switch back to Junie and check results. Okay, so Junie says it's ready, so it's completed the task. It created the guidelines with 270 something lines. So let's take a look at these guidelines. They're placed in .Junie guidelines folder. And let's see. So it correctly identified Java versions. Yep, we're using Maven, we're using Docker. Then it found external services. So we're using Postgres, we're using Valkey, then we're using SMTP server and SFTP server for testing. So it's pretty precise at this point. Then it provided correct instructions on how to run the whole thing, and also correctly displayed port mappings and the stuff. Build instructions look good, look sane, look good. So cleaning and building everything, cleaning and building a single module, which is right. Then my favorite part, it also creates environment variable configuration, and for local run, it picked values from Docker file, Docker compose file, which is good. Then some instructions on how to run the thing, and some instructions on what's used for testing. This part, Junie will be using it for creating new tests. So based on that, it created something, right? It created something that is a guideline for the tool itself, and something that can be used as a README. Let's try and actually write some code. But no, let's ask AI to write that code instead. Our code will be a very simple feature that we can use, and it will be pretty visual, so we can use it. So before we proceed, let me show you sync my orders on what it is like. So if I go here, sync my orders is a no-code platform, so you can create complex scenarios using visual tools. And this thing here is called scenario. It can have some nodes. It can have a transition between those nodes. And what we're going to do is we're going to extend our API, which will return a mermaid representation of the scenario. So for those who are not familiar with mermaid, it's a text-based markup language which you can use to create diagrams. So I have here prepared a list of our API endpoints, and if we go to scenarios, right? So As you can see here, we don't have anything specific here for the mermaid. So what we're going to do is I will instruct Junie to create a get method in the controller and implement underlying logic to fetch a scenario and return its mermaid representation. And then we can call it using API and visualize it somewhere. And I will need to switch my window again. So back to Junie. And let's start a new task. Before starting the task, I would like to actually give it a hint. So I know that I have this REST APIs exposed here. So I will go inside that controller, and I will use it as an inspiration. So I will copy reference to the method, and we'll say create a REST. Oh, sorry. Due to scaling, I now have delays in text being entered into the window, so I'm sorry for typos. REST endpoint similar to, but one that returns a mermaid representation of the execution graph of the scenario. Okay, so this will be our prompt. I made it simpler for Junie. I suggested a method that it can use as an inspiration. I also, based on my understanding of internals of the system, mentioned execution graph. Probably it will make things easier for Junie to create an implementation of this method. So I'm just going to start and let's see what happens. As I mentioned several times already, I'm not sure what will happen next because every time it can generate a different code. That's one of the gotchas you have to deal with when using AI tools. So it will create a plan again, and let's observe what happens with the plan. Sorry. So it correctly found the controller, obviously because there is a reference, but it already correctly found corresponding DTOs that are present in the project, and now it started going deeper, finding all of its dependencies, finding corresponding services, and it will try to place the code in the proper class or classes. And I think at the very end, it will also create a unit test, probably, or maybe not. Let's see. It said that it will create because in a plan it has like test new endpoint, but let's see. Sometimes it may not do that. As you can see here, after its modifications, there are some errors. So sometimes Junie creates code, then it understands that there is some kind of an issue. It can be a build issue due to missing imports, and it tries to fix those. So it can import stuff. Sometimes it will just revert the whole thing and will start it over for that particular file. Yeah, exactly. Like different results for everyone. It may be even useful in some cases because, like, if you're in a situation when something is generated that you completely don't like it and you want to regenerate, if the process was like 100% predictable, then it wouldn't be the best case, right? So at least hallucinations in this case, or the variations, they sometimes are very useful. But of course, let's see. So it says that it created a REST endpoint to return mermaid version of that scenario. So let's take a quick look. Let's find the method itself, and we can click here, and it will show all the changes. So okay, guys, you wanted increased scaling. Now I'm looking into this through a small hole. Okay, so it created some method which ends with mermaid. It produces text plain, which is correct. So that those are good news. It also gets scenario by ID, which is logical. And then it created some additional method inside the controller to convert execution graph to mermaid. So maybe it's not the best in terms of architecture. Maybe it should be somewhere else. Maybe that should happen in service. But let's see. At least it created something, and it can be used as a starter for like more production ready version. So now if I go again and share my browser with Swagger, and if I refresh it, nothing will happen because it hot reloaded, so actually something will happen. So here I will need to provide a scenario ID. I will also need to provide a JWT token. So I will grab some token. Don't show it to kids. Token is here. Okay, you need to close your eyes. And now I'm going to grab ID of the scenario that was shown before. Oh. So let's see. Well, now it created something, right? So let's try and open it in Mermaid editor. So if I go here and insert the result, it will render the result. So what happens is we're getting inventory files, then there is something happening for each item and then for each file. So the reality is that initial workflow is way more complicated, and this is the first iteration, and it didn't work as expected. So we can do the following. We can go to the tool again. We can go to the tool again, and I can write a follow-up here that update the method to properly handle steps with subgraphs and render those subgraphs. So we can do the following follow-up. Yesterday it worked. Today I'm not sure whether it will be working, but let's see. I think that at this point, probably GitHub Copilot finished working. So again, I can show you the results there. So this time it's faster, like 6 minutes. And it created a pull request. It created a pull request for updated README for the management module. So I can go here. I can go to the management module and I can check the README. So it will be pretty detailed README, sometimes way more detailed than we want. But still, it is what we asked for, right? It will show you the project structure, related environment variables. So basically everything that you need to start this project and to run this project on your local environment. Which brings me to the point that in the era of these AI tools, or age of these AI tools, where you can easily create decent documentation within minutes, it will be a crime not to create one. So at least if you have a minute and access to AI tools, and if you are not prohibited to use it, then you can of course use such tools and create documentation, or you can, as you saw, you can create an actual feature. And what's interesting, after creating that follow-up, so if I go again and try, let's see, maybe it works as expected. And 2 more minutes, I will show the result, then several words about restrictions, and we'll go to Q&A. Artem, I can see your question. I'll answer it a bit later. So let's see. I'm not sure that it fixed the issue. Maybe it fixed. Maybe it hasn't fixed. That's the problem, which I will discuss later. Let me copy again my ID token or access token. Okay, let's see. So if I go here again, if I will try it out, then I think that there is a chance it will become better than it was. So as you can see, it created a way more detailed flowchart, and I think that once I paste it into a live editor, then probably it will be way more detailed. And here we go. So this is the resulting one, which repeats the initial structure for, I'd say, for 100%. As you can see, it contains all the steps, all the container steps, all the dependencies, and it's also sorted in the correct order. So you can actually use it to create some small and not so small features within minutes. Now, let's talk a bit about limitations, or more like restrictions. So if we're talking about using AI tools, especially in the agent mode or agentic mode, when you create a prompt, the prompt will become a foundation for the whole workflow. The more abstract your prompt, the more it's vague, the worse results you will get. So, like, if you want to agent to be creative, you can write a very generic prompt, and you will get something. Probably nobody will know what you will get, right? But if you want to have a really productive workflow, spend some time on planning. So try to create as detailed description of modifications as it's possible, and of course extend the guidelines. Then it will produce results you will like. The next thing is going back to dilemma I mentioned. If you are doing it for something that you hate doing or you don't understand, in an attempt just to solve the task, that may become a problem, because you will spend a lot of time on trying to work around the issue, to command the LLM to produce a correct result, but the problem can be deeper. So if you want to implement something using LLM, right, generate some code, the best approach would be to understand what you're generating. So best case scenario, you understand everything, you have a full picture in your head, you're just too lazy to do that. So that way you generate your code, and you can review the generated code, and you can adjust the generated code. If that is not the case, and you'll be trying to generate things that you don't know, you will get into many problems. And one of the problem is sunk cost bias. So probably way before LLMs, when everyone was starting their journey in software development, the first instinct when you're dealing with some bug in your code is not probably not to sit and think about the root cause, but try to modify something, recompile it, run it again, and see the results. And then you can discover yourself in this loop, sitting for the whole day, and you're spending like all night on trying to fix the issue. The same with LLMs. Sometimes you can discover yourself in a situation when you're trying to make the LLM fix the damn thing for you for the 5 hours in a row. So that happens because there is a such thing as a sunk cost bias. When you already invested a lot of time in something, your brain tells you, okay, we've done a lot of things, we've invested a lot of time for this, we need to continue doing this until we get a solution. So if you're starting to notice that you are doing the same thing and trying to make LLM fix something for you and it's not working, then the best solution would be, as with any bug or any complex problem, just forget about it. Go get your coffee, go for a walk, let your brain rest, right? Then think about solution, and then the solution will come. Because if you will stuck in this sunk cost loop, it will be really non-productive. Okay, now I would like to launch another poll, uh, and I think you will like it, because I'd like to compare the results of the next poll to results of the previous one. And we're getting to Q&A session. So feel free to write questions. Okay, how do I make it? Oh, sorry. Here we go. So feel free to answer this one, because I'd like to compare the results of the previous one. All polling is private. I don't have access to particular answers. I think so. But anyway, I won't share it with anyone. Until now, we have same results or similar results, I'd say. So I'll be closing it in 10 seconds. So please take your time and vote, and let's see what happens. Okay, so here is what we got. 60% of people are using AI tools for development, which and then 23% are using AI only for personal projects, and then 11% are not using AI tools, or over 70%. So for me, it shows that comparing to the previous poll, right, it means that way more people are ready and willing to use AI tools than organizations are ready to adopt those. And I think that is something we software engineers deal a lot with. Like every time there is something new, we want to use it, we want to be pioneers, and we want to improve our workflows. But then politics and security and policies came into play, and we have to use it somewhere else. Okay, let me remove this poll from stage. Um, let's continue with Q&A section. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to ask those questions in the chat. Yeah, true. Please send your questions to the chat or to the questions tool. Meanwhile, underline LLM and temperature configurable in Junie. So I'm using default settings for Junie. I'm not modifying any kind of settings for it. But in general, what happens is if we're talking about assistants or copilots, right? Then you can select a model, you can configure the model, and you can tune, like do basic tuning, right? With agents, it's a bit different because agents need to create workflow. They need to use a particular model to create that workflow, and when they are using tools at different stages of that workflow, right? What happens is they need those tools to work properly. So you have way less configuration options for Junie than you have for AI assistant, for example. But under the hood, there are some. I know for sure there are some settings that you can modify, uh, like using the property files, using that kind of low-level configuration. Though I've never tried that because I'm just using it on standard settings, and I rely on the Junie developers to create the proper settings for their tool to work. Could you assume the strategy of how to handle the case that the underlying model may change its behavior to version since it's not deterministic behavior? Well, it happens even on that same model on the same version, right? So uh, probably first of all we need to take into account that even when we're dealing with one model of the same version of the same vendor, probably results will be different. If we're talking about like we're using some particular model, we like it, and then it's changed. For example, I think that happened with Claude, right? So when it was producing nice results, and then when the new model was released, it became way more difficult to use, and it started creating not so predictable code. Well, I would say that the option would be to use a different model. And in agentic tools, it's up to the developer of the plugin or extension to make sure that they're using exactly the version of models that are compatible with their agentic workflows. In this case, I'd say I'll be using the tool provided by, for example, Junie or Copilot, whatever, and I will leave to them to configure their internal models. How often do you reach the limits of your agents? Well, I probably never reach limits of agents. I'm not that using it extensively, though I'm using ultimate version of Junie, which has pretty generous limits. Any other questions or maybe comments? If you have any kind of experience or something you would like to share, then please go ahead. Okay, so I don't see any more questions. Then I would like to thanks everyone for attending this workshop. I hope that it was useful. And yeah, see you in future workshops. Okay, thanks everyone. Bye.